WMEL.
That's the sound of the 1951 Ford Victoria Hot Rod, fully restored and donated from the private collection of A.J. Hires. It's the 2017 Win the Classic Ford Car Raffle to support Helping Seniors of Brevard. You have to see this car. I'm Kerry Fink, and I'm inviting you to visit helpingseniors.brevard.org for full information on this exciting car raffle. That's helpingseniors.brevard.org. Stay tuned for more info on the Talk to Me radio network. We're glad that WMEL cares about the space and Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and are not necessarily those of WMEL staff, management, or advertisers.
This is Joe Steckler, folks, your host for Helping Seniors, the radio arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Our organization is designed to inform, educate, advocate, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors to the resources that they need in the area. We do this through the radio, television, newspapers, magazines, word of mouth, and just by about any means we can use to get you to know more about how you can help yourself. And we've got a pretty good show lined up today with Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, and Dennis Watkins from Senior Care of Brevard. We're going to talk about VA aid and attendance. We're going to talk about adult day health care. And since Dennis is a licensed real estate, or not real estate, but an insurance agent, I also happen to trust his judgment on plans and trying to help us all understand some nuances in the Affordable Health Care Act and what insurance costs can really be. So I may ask Dennis to give you a couple of examples during the show today to help you understand what either you're getting yourself into or how you can get yourself out of a mess that you managed to get yourself into in the first place. Because it is important, and Bill and I have talked about this over the years, but, you know, the show is put on by our sponsors, people like the Eye Institute, Dr. Lee Sheldon, Bill Johnson, elder law attorney. He's one of our sponsors, panelists today, and Dennis Watkins is the marketing specialist from Senior Care of Brevard. Senior Care of Brevard is one of our sponsors, and other organizations like Market Street Memory Care, Riverview Senior Resort, 11 Home Care, Wusthof. So you can see that our sponsors are the people that are connected to the business of taking care of people. That's why we're doing this, to build a better network so we can get you the kind of help that you need. For information and being connected to the services, call Kay Kaiser at 321-473-7770. That's our office number. Kay can help you, and if she can't help you, she'll get you pointed in the right direction to somebody that can help you, because often you can find out that what you might think you need is not what you really need, and Kay can help you unsort and untangle the whole mess. So I want to start off today with asking Dennis just to comment on what is adult day health care, because I'm sure Bill will have a comment under estate planning and what he does on the importance of retirement planning. But first, Dennis, just talk just a second about adult day health care.
Very good. Thanks, Joe. Glad to be here today. So adult day care, we are a facility that's open Monday through Friday, open from 7 in the morning till 5 in the evening. And the whole concept is it's a place where caregivers, sons and daughters, can bring mom and dad. They can't be left home alone during the day, and they can come to a safe place and have activities and be part of something during the day. So that's it, and it's not an overnight stay concept, so daycare is daycare.
But why is adult day health care important to seniors and overall health care? How does it fit in this whole chain? And Bill, I want you to comment on that too, but first, Dennis.
I mean, my observation has been, have been serving on their board for the past 7 years. I go over there a lot. It's instead of mom or dad just sitting home all day by themselves, they're with a group of other people. So just engaging them in activities and things like that, you know, adding longevity to their life, I think is just huge.
Okay.
For that setting.
But Bill, you're an elder law attorney. You do estate planning. You do all kinds of stuff, documents, everything, end of life, everything else. But you've been involved with the Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation and been involved with me over these years. But what would your comment be on what Dennis is saying about day health care and its importance in the overall chain of aging?
Well, part of that is, I think adult daycares serve an important function in letting people be able to stay home. It's a cog that can be used, that you can place them somewhere where they can get activities and enrichment during the day when maybe the son or daughter or somebody has to go work or something like that. And then, you pick them up at night like you would if you had a child in daycare. And then simply you bring them home, and then you take over the caregiving duties when you bring them home. So a lot of times it's a lower cost transaction for most families, and subsequently allows them to keep their loved one at home.
Yeah, but I think on the other side about when you get in your estate planning and you think about ways that people are going to have to plan for retirement, how often or do you find that people neglect to think about things like adult day health care under their planning with long-term care and everything else?
Well, let's ask Dennis a simple question. How do you pay for it?
Great question. So, of course, we charge a daily rate. One of the misconceptions of adult daycare is you don't have to come all 5 days. We have some clients that come 1 day a week, 2 days a week. We have clients that come half day. We have a half day price, full day price. Some of our clients are, in fact, private pay clients. They write us a check every month. But most of our clients go through the Medicaid diversion programs that pays for they get approved by Medicaid. So we get a check each month from the Medicaid companies to pay for their care.
So it's not covered, or the point I was trying to make, it's not covered by your health insurance.
Correct. Traditional health insurance, where you go to the doctor for the flu, does not cover adult daycare.
And I think that's the misconception, when you ask your question, what are you talking about to people who are retiring, is a lot of people think health insurance covers all these things. It does not. So if you're going to go to somewhere like an adult daycare center, you're either going to have to pay out of pocket, or you're going to have to qualify for maybe a program like Medicaid, home and community-based services that would help pay the bill.
But okay, here let's throw in what you were going to talk about today, VA Aid and Attendance Program. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
What does VA Aid and Attendance do, and how can that help with paying for adult day health care?
There is a program through the VA that's eligible for veterans and unremarried widowers of veterans. It is it's called Aid and Attendance, which is actually a shorthand version of the non-service connected disability pension program. But it gets its name from that you must be in need of somebody's aid and attendance for your care. So you have to meet a medical component that you need help or assistance with your care. And if you fall into the category of being a veteran or an unremarried widower of a veteran, and you have less than $80,000 in assets, excluding house and car, for a married couple, and they do have an income test, and basically they take your income, subtract out your health care expenses, and then whatever that number is, which would be your net income, they subtract that from the maximum award amount, and that's how much you would get from the VA in the form of a cash check each and every month. And you're eligible based on the different levels. If you were just a widow or widower of a veteran, you could get up to $11.53 a month. If you were a single veteran, you could get, I think it's $17.58.
Something like that, yeah.
Somewhere in that order. If you are a veteran with a dependent spouse, I think it's something like $21.20. And if you're both, you and your spouse, veterans, I think you can get up to something like $2,400 a month. So and those are monthly checks, which would help pay for these services. You can spend that check any way you want.
And it's so important, okay? Just to give you an example, folks, what Bill and Dennis are talking about. I have talked innumerable times at church functions, senior functions and retiree seminars with up to a couple hundred people there. And I don't think I've ever spoken at any function where I didn't find unremarried spouses of World War II, Korean, and Vietnam vets that were living on, and this is the honest truth, one lady, this is after a well-known company's, their husbands had worked for a well-known company, and one was getting $700 a month in retirement, and the other was getting $800. They were both eligible for the VA aid and attendance, which brought them roughly almost $1,200 a month. So, you know, if you're living on $800 or $700 a month, you suddenly get $1,200 more. That's like a gold mine. It's important, and but I always sometimes on shows like this I'll remind you to get your pencil and paper out. But you might want to do that because these guys are going to give you some other information, Bill.
Well, the two things you need to remember about aid and attendance is, one, you have to have high medical expenses. Because remember that formula I talked about, they take your income minus your medical expenses equals your net income, and then they subtract that from the award amount. So if you have, let's say, $2,500 a month in income, but you don't have any medical expenses, you're not going to get anything from VA. So one of the things you have to be aware of or cognizant is you have to have medical expenses. The second thing is this is not a program that just helps healthy people. You must be in need of aid and attendance for your care. So if you were, let's say, in an assisted living facility, you could write that off as a medical expense, and you would probably get a good award amount from VA. Now, if you're in independent living, you can't write that off. That's not a medical expense.
No, but I do know, and it's pretty well closely held. I believe that there is a program under the VA aid and attendance where it will help with adult day health care.
Yeah, oh yes, I totally agree with that.
There is. And folks, here's a number I want you to write down. 633-2012. 633-2012, because that's Dennis Van Orsdale's number out at the government complex in Viera for the vet's office. And that is one government entity that I fully support that we keep, because Dennis and his people don't mince any words. They give good information. They know what they're doing. And if you've got a question about the VA program, you will get it answered by Dennis and his people because they're extremely good. While we're talking about this, and Bill threw the subject of insurance and everything in there, one of the things that by having Dennis here today, I asked Dennis a question about what would it cost for a good insurance plan for a family of four. There's so much that's said in the paper, and you got Republicans and Democrats writing darn columns into Florida today, and everybody's got their own opinion of what the real answer is. I'd like for Dennis just to give you a real succinct thing on family of four, and then Dennis, how you explain to us how you could drop those costs by doing just a couple of simple things. And this is the kind of thing that you need to know, folks, so you can ask the right kind of question when you go in for counseling. And before I even let Dennis talk, I want you to remember that the SHINE program, SHINE, I'll get the number while Dennis is talking. SHINE is one of the, it has no axes to grind. It will give you an answer on insurance, and during this open enrollment period, which starts soon, it'll give you an answer on the best way for you to go without them trying to direct you to any affiliate. And right now, United Way has started a program, and I said in the paper, but I'll take a chance on putting my foot in my mouth, but I think that they're directing their navigator program to certain insurance types of insurance. And you're not going to get the best answer that way. You're going to get the best answer by going to people like Shine. Dennis?
Thanks, Joe. So let me share. So I'm a licensed independent life health insurance broker. So Had that license since 1992, so I kind of know health insurance frontwards and backwards. So Joe asked me, beginning of the show, what is the average cost for a family of four, mom and dad, two kids? On the marketplace through the Affordable Care Act, if it's a family that makes a decent income where they will not get a subsidy, they're looking at $1,200 plus a month premiums for a good plan. And typically the good plans come with high deductibles. That's the other thing that kills families. I was with a family the other day that literally was paying over $1,200 a month for a $10,000 deductible plan. If they never
$1,200 a month for a $10,000 deductible.
Deductible.
That means they had to go up to meet 10,000 expenses for their kickstarter kicked
Correct.
in.
Correct.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've been representing, because I'm being an independent broker, I think it's all about being able to offer consumers choices, educate them on all the options out there. So one of the areas that I help families in understand and educate are the health share ministry programs, which are technically not insurance, but they work just like insurance. And I'm taking families, now you have to be healthy, you can't be a smoker, but I'm taking families that are paying $1,200 plus a month, moving them to a health share ministry plan, which, by the way, qualifies and is exempt from the ACA tax penalty. I'm taking families down to, under $600 a month, as opposed to $1,200 plus, and I'm reducing their deductibles by quite a bit. I'm usually taking them down to $5,000 deductibles.
But they're essentially getting the same coverage.
They're essentially getting the same coverage.
Would they get the same kind of coverage like that with a, what do you call these plans where they, where we don't go into regular, well, we're talking insurance. I don't want to mix that up with Medicare. Let's stay away from that.
Yes, that's, my conversation is under 65.
Okay. Bill, now thinking what Dennis is talking about, how about you thinking in terms of the VA aid and attendance, your estate planning, being an attorney, and how you direct your clients in building their estate plans? How do you address this, what Dennis is just talking about?
Well, I think when you do estate planning, what you're looking for is, one is to see how you can avoid probate, and if they have a lot of money, how you can minimize estate taxes. And then you're also doing a plan for what happens in the event of incapacity, who takes over managing the finances, who manages the health care. And then at least the third prong of what I look at is, if you had a long-term care event, how would you pay the costs? And or do you have long-term care insurance? Which almost universally the answer is no.
Yes.
And so subsequently then we look at, are you going to self-insure or are you going to try and qualify for Medicaid? And then depending on how much they have in assets, we kind of know which way to go from there.
But both of you, one of you is an attorney, the other is an insurance salesman who's now working and trying to help an adult day health care. Having...
Well, let's talk just about that for a second. I'm a big advocate of long-term care insurance. I mean,
so am I.
We talked about the adult daycare situation, and as Dennis pointed out, there are a lot of people there who are on what is called the home and community-based waiver kind of program. And that's a Medicaid program that helps pay for those kind of costs outside of a nursing home. What we haven't told you on the show so far is there's 47,000 people on a waiting list for those services. So if you want to stay home and you don't have the money to pay for care in your house, well, maybe you should start looking at a long-term care policy, because if something happens to you, even if you qualify for Medicaid, you're not going to get the benefits at home or for adult daycare. I mean, a minimum wait these days is about 6 months for people to get these benefits.
That is true. We, at Senior Care, we, of course, network and work with a lot of case managers throughout the county. And we hear this every day from case managers where they have a client but have not gotten the final approval for the Medicaid, so they can't come to us yet. They're still sitting home waiting. And Bill's right. We've had some clients that have waited 6 months to get approved to come over.
Which all goes back to the old adage that, Bill, you and I have talked about for years, that proper planning precludes poor performance.
Right, right. And you know, I talked about this on this show, I don't know, many times.
A lot.
I go back to the Money Magazine article that it's probably about 5 or 6 years old about what retirees are looking at when they retire. And, you know, number one is having the same standard of living they had while they worked. 2 is outliving their money. And you go through that list, and somewhere down around number 10 is long-term care.
Right.
Nobody's thinking about this.
Right. And I actually sell long-term care. When I'm sitting with a family, husband and wife that are, say, early 50s, that's the last thing they want to talk about. And I try to explain to them, if you buy it now, it's inexpensive, and it's locked in, and you have it. What happens a lot of times, people wait until they have the illnesses where they need the long-term care. Well, a long-term care is an underwritten product. It goes through underwriting. And if you wait too late and you have some illnesses, you'll be turned down.
Okay. What do you recommend as a good age, Bill, to start thinking about purchasing long-term care for the average person?
For me personally, between the 40 and 50 age bracket, because once you hit 50 and 55 and 60, the premiums jump considerably.
Right. But Bill, and you're talking to people and building an estate plan. If people, a lot of people make a decent salary, they can afford to do these things. They just don't want to part with the money too soon. Right?
Right, right. A lot
Okay.
of people view this as being optional.
Right.
Until the event occurs, and then all of a sudden it's, catastrophic planning.
But good attorneys that do work in the field of estate planning do customers a disservice if they don't explain to them what you and Dennis are talking about.
Correct. I mean, it depends, what kind of conversation the people want to have. But if somebody came in my office and with their parents and said, we want mom and dad to come in and talk about what they need to do now, we would have the conversation about estate planning, incapacity planning, and long-term care planning.
But at that point, you'd point out the need for long-term care health care insurance?
Well, I would point out the need to have a plan. Not everybody can afford long-term care insurance
Right.
or qualify. As Dennis was saying, you want to get somebody in the 40s before they get these healthcare events. Well, sometimes I get the people that come in, they've already beat cancer once, and they're not going to get long-term care insurance.
Okay, you got a good point there. But see, what we're talking about here, there's almost an answer for almost anything we talk about. You may not be able to do it exactly the way you want to do it, but if you talk to somebody that really knows what they're doing with estate planning, that really knows what they're doing with insurance planning, they can do a better job of giving you the right answer. Folks, we're up at our mid-show break. We're going to take a couple of minutes, and while our sponsors talk and you get a little more information, and we'll be back. We got several other areas to talk about, so please stay with us.
WMEL.
This is Joe Steckler, folks. We're back live. We got the programmers excited a little bit. We were talking here about my hamburger at Beef O'Brady's, and the program guy was trying to say we're just about to go on the air, Joe. So he got me excited, and now we're back on the air, but we're on for the second half of the show, folks. And Helping Seniors is designed to inform, educate, advocate, and connect seniors and those that help seniors with services in the area. And there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful services in the area. And so too often we think about services just being maybe like medical services or daycare or something like that. But there are other services like good roofing companies, good handymen, good electricians, good attorneys. How do I get an honest answer? How do I get the best deal most bang for my buck? Because most of us hate to waste money. I hate to waste money. I don't mind spending it. I love to go out and eat, but I love sandwiches, and I just like to get the best place that has the best sandwiches in the world. And my wife is not as great a fan of sandwiches as I am, but I persevere, and I do love Beef O'Brady's, and I do love Panera's. So we have a lot of fun as you live, and that's what radio is. This is talk radio. we talk about how we can help people. And some of the people that help pay for the show, I'll just mention a couple of sponsors for the last half of the show. Vitas Hospice, Ear Care, Courtney and Braswell Financial Group, Barbara McIntyre Home Equity Loan, Handy Pro the Space Coast, Aldea's Senior Scene Magazine, In-Home Personal Services, Personal Care. You can see these are all programs that help people, and that's what we're all about. We try to connect, educate, inform, and advocate. And having said that, let's go back and pick up with our two panelists today. One of them is Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, and the other is Dennis Watkins, who is the marketing specialist for Senior Care of Brevard and Adult Day Health Care. And I said we were going to talk about several things on the second part of the show, and I said the only problem I had was remembering exactly what we were going to talk about. So let's talk about. Let's finish up talking about the VA aid and independence and how we get started on that. Bill Johnson.
You can pick up an application at the VA service office, which is out of Viera. Joe, they're in Building B at the Government Center in Viera.
633-2012. 633-2012. Bill can't remember the number.
I suggest you give them a call before you head out there so they can meet with you. But they'll give you a list of all the items that you need to put together with an application, and they can give you assistance on filing the application. So, but remember, keep in mind, this is a means-tested program, so you have to be below the asset limits. Generally speaking, $80,000 in liquid assets, excluding house and car for a married couple, which means about $40,000, excluding house and car for a single person. So those are general rules. There is some leeway on those, and you have to have high medical expenses to offset your income to get the maximum award amounts from the VA. But if you go to Building B, the Viera Government Center, and they can help you out with all of that.
I'll have one comment.
One last thing. It's free. So
that's exactly right. It's free. But, folks, I have had Dennis Van Arsdale on my program, TV and radio, 4 or 5 times. And every time I've had that man on a show, I have learned something new. I even learned that I have been eligible for a couple of deductions, and I didn't even know about it. I will just add to what Bill said. While it is means tested, there are things that are available through the VA that you don't know about, and it's amazing what you can find out. It's just like, hey, working with people that call the office. People will call for one thing and find out they got something else they need an answer to. So that's the benefit of calling a program. The other thing one of the other things that we talked about, and this is something that both Bill and Dennis are familiar with, and I'm not, and I'm imagine the average listener is not either. And let's talk just a minute, both of you guys, about health savings accounts. Who's going first?
I'll go first, I guess. A health savings account is basically just like an IRA. You put your money in there, it grows tax deferred, and then you can use that money to pay for different health-related costs. Things like co-pays, deductibles, those kind of things, out-of-pocket medical expenses. So if you have a high deductible insurance plan, you may benefit from a health savings account. I think that the contribution limit's about $2,400 a year.
Yes, and they want to raise that.
Okay. And the unique thing about this is you can contribute now, and if you don't use it, you can roll those dollars over.
Correct.
Which the benefit of that is if you are, say in your 40s and you step one of these up and you keep putting money in every year, it's going to grow tax deferred so that when you retire, you can use this money in this account to supplement what Medicare doesn't pay for or long-term care doesn't. That money will be available for you.
And it's tax deferred?
It is tax
Yes.
deferred.
Yes.
What else would you add to it?
So when I sit with folks and help them with health insurance, I always share the HSA story. and say, look, if you've got a $5,000 deductible, I'm not here to help you with your budget, but I'm here to encourage you to look at your household budget, start figuring out where you pay yourself each month. And I said, the beauty is most all the banks in Brevard County, you can go to your local bank, credit union, and set up an HSA account for free. I believe some of the banks, you can actually get a debit card associated with the HSA. So if I go pick up a prescription, instead of giving them my personal Visa card, I can give them my HSA bank account card, and it comes right out of that account. So yes, I have clients, and I know people that have built their HSA accounts up to over $10,000. And every time they go to the doctors and have to pay a copay or a deductible or an 80-20% coinsurance where they're billed for $320 for something, they just take it right out of their HSA account.
And that money is not taxed.
Correct. So it's
That's
all
one of the advantages.
So part of the scenario is you're partially self-insuring yourselves for future costs.
Okay, maybe you've heard of this. I've heard, and I'm sorry I kicked myself because I haven't followed up on this, that there's a program connected either with the VA or what you all are talking about that will help fund other programs but it's VA connected. Bill, are you? Does that make any sense to what I'm talking about? Have you heard of any program that the VA will help fund that's not really known about? It's one of these. If you read Clancy or anything, because it's like a black op operation. They don't want to really talk about it because it's sort of it's one of these secretive type programs that is available, but nobody knows about it, and it has something to do with the Health Care Act. I opened the box up, so I'll have to do some research, and I'll get back on that. But I do know that there is. I've read, and I just didn't simply follow. I thought one of you two might know about it.
No.
Boy,
Can't help you on that one, Joe.
I got an insurance guy, and I got an attorney here.
I'll help you with the research too.
Right. What would you do to a witness on a stand? How would you cross-examine them on something like that, Bill?
Cross-examine them, you ask them questions.
But folks, and Bill and Dennis, I would ask like both of you to comment on my next comment. There are so many things that we see in the paper, that we talk about on radio, that you see on television, that simply are not true, and people take them as gospel truth, and they point us in the wrong direction so many times. Dennis, you're nodding. What does the comment of mine bring to your attention?
Well, it brings, so it wants me to talk about the topic of, funding. I love going around Brevard County and waving Senior Care's flag. We've been in business for 32 years. We're a nonprofit right here in Cocoa on 520. And gosh, we probably haven't seen a penny of funding from outside organizations, state, county level, for I don't know how long. So it's interesting what's going on in the county with Senior Care. Say funding from the county. There's other organizations that seem to be getting funding. At Senior Care, we're going to fight for continuing funding of Meals on Wheels, because that's a program we use each day to feed our seniors a hot meal. So I hope I hope our government doesn't kill money to help feed seniors. If we can't feed the seniors, and they're not going to come out.
But I think you're probably referring to the article that Berman or somebody wrote. It was in Florida Today paper where Florida Day has jumped in on the side of Aging Matters and a Meals on Wheels program. I wholeheartedly agree, but with this caveat. Aging Matters is a separate nonprofit organization. The Meals on Wheels program is a separate national program, and a separate national program gives the Meals on Wheels roughly $900,000 a year to fund that program. Then they claim that they need more from the county to the tune of a couple $100,000 and more from United Way for $280,000. Yet they make a profit on their soup kitchen. They make a profit on their catering service, and I've not experienced it myself, but I've had seniors tell me that if they go to the shared lunch program, they may go one time, they won't go back because they may have been felt very guilty if they don't pay a copay to get the meal. So they feel uncomfortable because while they could use the food, the feeling that they're put under is not worth taking the meal.
Mm-hmm.
I've also had seniors tell me that they threw the food out, they didn't like it, and I've had some very prominent people who now are on the food program say that they couldn't get service for several reasons. One, there was no route that served their area. Two, there were not enough drivers available to deliver the meals, so that's why I wrote a column one time on getting volunteers for the Meals on Wheels program so people could have the food delivered. But all these things are when you get a writer, a journalist that goes in and gets to an agency and they talk about something, they don't get all the nuts and bolts of what's really going on. Consider this for a minute, Bill and Dennis. What would happen if, under the current budget program with the current president, what if he said no more $900,000 under the federal aid program for Meals on Wheels? What would Aging Matters then do to provide food for all our seniors? My point here is that we don't have a backup program.
Correct.
It's just like you in building an estate plan and you in insurance.
Right.
You need a backup plan for how you're going to do it. And that goes back to the county's responsibility, and it goes back to what's happened in Bill. You and I talked about it a month ago, 2 months ago. And then, as you mentioned today, seed money is important to nonprofit organizations, and when you take the money away from those nonprofit organizations, they don't have the flexibility to get through slow cash periods, and they go broke.
Right.
And we lose good organizations that help people.
Right, and we've gone through the cycles in the past, and even though we have the majority of our clients at Senior Care are on approved Medicaid payments where we get checks every month from the diversion programs, but there are a period of times with us because being a small nonprofit, we're not a cash cow organization, and there are times when the money from the diversion programs, we'll get a letter in the mail from one of them saying, we've confirmed your payment, but you're not going to get a check for another 90 days. It always happens at the end of the year. We know in November, December, we won't see those checks until February, March. So we have to plan accordingly, and it's a challenge for the small nonprofit. Like I said, I've been on the board over there since 2010. I really know Senior Care frontwards and backwards, and I've lived in Brevard County now for 10 years. It bugs me that there can't be equal participation by all when money's given out, whether it's from state level or county level. Why can't it all just be equally shared? That's the part that I scratch my head over sometimes. So having said that, one of the reasons Senior Care asked me to come on as a part-time marketing specialist for them. We're still going to fight the fight at Senior Care and always ask for our fair share. If there's money out there to be had, we'd like an opportunity to earn some of that as a nonprofit. But we're not going to sit around and wait for that. So I'm working on some really aggressive. We're working on a gifting program. Last year we were blessed. We had a family that had a mom that was with Senior Care for many years. She then passed on. And to our surprise, she had built into her estate planning that she gifted a sizable amount of money to Senior Care of Brevard.
That's wonderful.
All right. So with my insurance background and other backgrounds and access to other industry experts, we're designing a gifting plan. We're going to have a trifold brochure that we can share with families and educate them on when they're working with somebody like Bill in the estate planning, they could actually gift a portion, a dollar amount, a percentage, whatever, to a nonprofit like Senior Care.
But all that stuff is so important, and I'll ask Bill to comment on this. It's so important for the donor to believe that the money is going to be used for the right thing.
Correct.
And Bill and I have talked many, many times on the show about estate plans that where people designate some of their money for something, and reputation of the designee or the donor designee is so important, and so important that you use that money for the right reason. Bill, can you comment on that?
Well, I my only comment is, it's very tough to rely on donors because, like everybody else, in a downtime, donors don't give.
Right.
And so when you're at your highest point of need, all your donation money dries up. And that makes it very difficult to plan with just donors.
Okay.
Now, to follow up what you just said, the few times we've been blessed where we received a donation from an estate, our executive director then picks up the phone and calls the family, and of course we go out of our way to thank them for the gift. We then ask the family that gifted it, how do you want us to spend it? Because our goal, if we're gifted money, our goal is to help seniors that can't afford daycare. Let's sponsor a few seniors with that pot of money.
Yep. Bill and Dennis, from having been in this nonprofit business for close to 30 years, I would only make a comment that there are good nonprofits and there are some nonprofits that are not so good. And any nonprofit in my book that has an extremely high overhead, and I can name a bunch of them right here in this county, and I'm not going to mention them by name, but there are some. If you're going to make a donation, you owe it to yourself to find out the status of these organizations, and you can do that by pulling up their 990 IRS tax document on the internet, find out how much their overhead expenses are, and then you make your gift donation and determination based on your own research, not what somebody tells you is good or bad. One thing I do want Bill Johnson to talk about today, since we're just starting November. In November and December, you need to think about the end of the year. You need to think about changes in the law. You need to think about the documents I need to have prepared and documents I need to update prior to the end of the year. Bill, just give our listeners a little friendly reminder about some of those things.
Well, one is you have to make sure you take your minimum distribution out of your IRA. Otherwise, you'll get walloped with a penalty if you don't do that. You also need to start looking at all the different areas where you can claim some sort of benefit on your taxes and get those documents together, because sure enough, beginning in January, all those documents like your mortgage interest statements and things like that will start rolling in. If there's been any major changes in your life, divorce or death or things like that, you probably need to go back and look at your legal documents to make sure you still have the same beneficiaries and you have the right people named as your power of attorney and your designation of healthcare surrogate and things like that. So there's a lot of documents you need to go back through and double check.
Yeah, you need to do like I do, folks. You need to keep impeccable records. It's extremely good. You got to go be able to pull that drawer out and say, this is the document. My wife is sitting here watching me make this statement. She knows I don't do this. But the ideal thing is to do is have it all in one place. I do try to keep it in one place, but I could do a better job. But the worst thing in the world I can do is forget an important deduction, and I didn't pay that close attention to the new run out on the tax plan of President Trump's, but it looks to me like there's some pretty good deductions in there and some ways that the middle class may be able to save money.
Don't forget, if you have a long-term care event, a lot of people listen to this show do, that you can write off your long-term care expenses to the point they exceed 7.5, oh, actually, excuse me, that changed, 10% of your adjusted gross income.
Oh, okay, all right. Now you got to explain that a little bit more. You pulled something on me today. Now what are you talking about?
Well, to the extent that your medical expenses exceed 10% of your adjusted gross income, you can write it off against your taxes. So it's a huge tax deduction.
Is this something this year is new or is it?
No,
no.
Used to be.
Oh, okay.
Used to be 7.5%. Then it bounced up to 10, and I think they're talking about bringing it back down to 7.5%. But who knows?
I wish they'd bring it down lower so I could get a deduction then.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll see if President Trump put that in his tax plan.
We'll see. I heard there's cuts to Medicare and Medicaid in there. So.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's something that could be extremely important, and again, it goes back to planning.
Right.
If he makes a cut, we got to figure out a way to handle it. You might want to talk to people like Dennis, and you need to think about, on the open enrollment period, going to your Shine counselor here in Brevard County and call Kay at the office at 473-7770 and get access to Shine counselors. I see you're just itching to say something. What?
And next time, vote.
Vote. Okay, Dennis.
We have one quick thing. So to follow on year-end planning, here's another thing I share a lot with my insurance clients that are getting up in age.
Gotta go quick.
As we get older, make sure you're making copies of all your legal documents, insurance, and sharing that with your sons and daughters so they know what's going on.
Okay, folks, we're at the end of the show, but I do want to thank Bill and Dennis here. They're going to be a regular pair from now on, and I think if you got questions you want, call a radio station and we'll get them to Bill and Dennis. I'll see you next week with Dr. Sheldon and another guest. Bye-bye.